So welcome to our Mainstreet Masters series presented by Mainstreet SA. I'm David West, your host today, and we're interviewing Robert Bria, the Mayor of Norwood, Payneham, St Peters, and we're talking about the success of the parade at Norwood, which is one of South Australia's favourite main streets. Hello, Robert, how are you?
I'm well, thank you, David. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. I'd just like to start, when you joined council back in 97, what was the parade like then, and what was sort of the vibe around the parade?
Well, probably the look of the parade probably hasn't changed that much over the last 26, 27 years, but certainly the functionality has changed. Back in 97, it was only 3 or 4 years after the previous Kensington and Norwood Council had did a major upgrade of the street. They undergrounded the power lines, but more importantly, they introduced outdoor dining, which was probably a relatively new initiative in Adelaide, and the parade hasn't looked back since. But clearly, the parade has undergone significant changes in terms of the tenancy mix over the years. But in terms of the way the street looks, probably not too much has changed, but it still remains Adelaide's premier main street and a very attractive place for not only the locals, but of course visitors in Adelaide, and now with events such as Gather Round interstate as well.
And I think the shopping centre being in the centre of the street gives you a really good impact as a destination point. Has that certainly helped?
Look, the parade is fortunate. It's got 2 anchor tenants directly opposite each other in Coles and Foodland. There are a number of main streets around Australia who've got that. And I think what that does is it offers choice, not only in terms of supermarkets, but also choice in terms of what's on either side of the road. So it means there's a lot more to explore. You can hang around on one side of the street for a while before you sort of cross over to the other. And so there's a nice balance, I think, in that regard. And I think, the key to success of any main street is having that nice balance in terms of tenancy mix of the sorts of, basic services and retailers that you want, food and banks and the like, but also those individual, unique, independent businesses that sort of sit alongside the national brands as well. So maintaining that balance, I think, is critical to the success of any main street.
Yes, I was going to say, you've been involved with Economic Development Australia as well. So how has that sort of added to your armoury of what your knowledge is as well?
Oh, look, it's been really important, I think, because for the last 10 to 15 years, I've chaired the Norwood Parade Precin Committee and the Business and Economic Development Advisory Committee. So I've had lots of sort of practical hands-on experience in dealing with traders and property owners about economic development. But doing the economic developer course with the EDA sort of opened my eyes a bit to the sort of the theory behind economic development and lots of the things that you wouldn't ordinarily think about, but clearly are very important in terms of designing an economic development strategy, or figuring out how you're going to sort of bring a street that may be experienced a downturn back to life, or just looking for a competitive or comparative advantage over nearby main streets and shopping centres, just to give you that edge to ensure that people keep coming to the parade and that it's an attractive place to work, dine and play.
Yes. I was going to say the COVID, of course, hit all the main streets and the shopping centres and the city centre. So how's the parade travelling at the moment?
The parade's doing quite well, actually. I mean, like other main streets, we were impacted by COVID quite severely, and given the number of hospitality venues on the parade and the restrictions that they experienced with capacity issues, be they pubs, hotels or restaurants, clearly that had an impact. But what the council tried to do during that period was introduce a suite of measures to soften the blow, if you like. That included some rate rebates, suspending rates for a quarter for some businesses that were forced to close, for example, gyms and pubs. We suspended outdoor dining licence fees. And we also, for a while, turned a blind eye to giving parking tickets for a good 9 to 12 months, because we knew that everyone was competing for, $1 in that regard. So we didn't want to add insult to injury by, whacking someone with a $60 fine for overstaying their limit for 10 or 20 minutes when they've just spent some money in our city. So it was really a package or a suite of measures that were designed to keep the street viable, help those traders those in particular who were more impacted than others through the various COVID measures. But also it's just symbolically just to let the traders know that the council was on their side and we had their back and we were going to help them get through, a difficult period.
Yep, and I know that your website is a fantastic website. I've praised it a lot with different when I've looked at different examples around the world, and I think the Norwood Parade website is fantastic. Can you tell me how that's been working and people using that? I can see that you've got some new blogs and things. You're always keeping it up to date with what's going on, and it's a really good website, I think, that actually covers exactly what the parade is about.
Well, I think we need to have, all main streets need a very sort of vibrant website that's going to attract people, and you need to continuously, change what's on the website with new events or new initiatives, showcase some new businesses, have a spotlight on perhaps lesser known businesses, but always seeking to engage retailers and service providers with the community. And I think that's what it's all about. It's about establishing those connections between people so that they can develop initially a rapport, but hopefully down the track a sense of loyalty. So I think using social media is now obviously commonplace and second nature for all retailers, but I think it's about how you use it, and it needs to be an active site rather than a passive site, not just providing information, but really getting to people's hearts and minds about why they should visit a street, what's on offer, and obviously the return visitations is critical to that.
I was going to say that you sit on the Precin committee, which is a combined committee of the businesses and council have been very proactive. Can you just tell us how that relationship works?
Well, the Norwood Parade Precin committee, I think, is really important. As Adelaide's Mainstreet, Premier Mainstreet, we need to have a vibrant committee that is comprised of people who are heavily invested in the precinct. And so what council did in establishing the committee was to ensure that the majority of the committee were either traders or property owners on the parade. And I think that was important. So we didn't send a message that it was a council-centric or council-controlled committee. Having the majority of membership of the committee being traders or property owners ensures that really their decision is pretty much theirs. And I think ensuring that sense of ownership is always there gives those committee members confidence that they're being listened to and that their aspirations and needs are being implemented. So that process and that the composition of that committee really has worked really well. We're not looking at changing it, and we obviously like to get a nice blend of experiences and skills and businesses on that committee. Some of them are retail, some of them are service, some of them are property owners, some of them are just traders. So having that blend, I think, along with local elected members whose wards incorporate the parade, again, to establish that strong sense of connectivity, not only with the street, but with the traders and the property owners, I think is really important. So you have a really strong, committed, focused group of people who are, whose sole interest is the betterment of the precinct.
I think it's also really good that there's a lot of main streets around South Australia and Australia that don't have any funding. And I know that the parade has actually got around $200,000 to actually use to put onto programs and make things happen. How have you found that actually works?
Well, I think if you're going to invest in a main street and have a committee, then you need to, market the street and promote the street. And so, yes, over the years, we've had a separate rate, which has been struck with the traders on the parade, and this year it's or the coming financial year rather, it's $225,000, and that is exclusively to promote the parade with competitions, promotions, social media, activations, and other events that just to create general interest in the parade as a precinct. We probably collect more than some other precincts and less than others, But we feel the balance is right at the moment. But it is under regular review. In fact, we're just doing a review now for the the separate rate. But it has been absolutely critical in ensuring that the existing traders get bang for their buck in terms of what they're paying and the way we promote the precinct. But it also gives insights to prospective traders who are looking to move on the parade, that they will be supported by the council. And I think that's a good selling point for the council in terms of saying, hey, here's a reason to come to the parade. Not only is it a great strip and you're amongst hundreds of other businesses sharing in this wonderful Main Street, but you've got a council that actually cares and is investing in the street, along with working closely alongside traders and property owners.
I think that's an important point because quite often I think some streets are very nervous about charging a levy or having a marketing fund. But when retailers are looking for a location to come to, they know that they can go to a shopping centre which has a marketing fund as well and is very competitive. And I think it's a really good advantage to actually have a Main Street with a marketing fund that actually will harness all the collective strength of the street and bring them together as a partnership. And I think that's the way to make a street competitive.
I think so. And experience tells me that when there's a bit of an economic downturn, traders and property owners look to government at all levels of government to give them a helping hand, to whether it be promotion or to reduce fees and charges or the like. And then when times get good, they probably want government to step out or step back. What the fee does, I think, is provides a constant source of revenue, but also a regular sense of engagement and sense of connectivity that is always there in good times and in bad. And I think it's better to have that constant rather than the ebbs and flows that go along with the economic cycle, where traders want councils to step in and then they want councils to step out depending on the times. I think having council provide what I think is a regular, fairly light touch, I think is important. It's good to know that council is always there and that your money is always being spent where it should be, which is to promote your business.
And of course, with the marketing, you need to have things to talk about and actually need some really great events. And can you just tell us about some of the events that you run at the parade? Because you do some fantastic events.
Well, we do a variety of events, and obviously the Tour Down Under, the cycling race in January, is one that we've been holding for many years, one of the stages. That brings up to 30,000, 40,000 people on the day, which is fantastic. The weather's warm, people come from everywhere, and it's a great promotion for the parade, not only to local audiences, but to national and particularly European audiences where, potentially there's an audience of half a billion people, watching cycling, which is a big sport in Europe. And then on the other side of the coin, we have Gather Round, which is starting in a few weeks, and the parade's been fortunate enough to be part of Gather Round last year for its inaugural event, and this year again. So we're hosting 2 games again, and we're trying to leverage off the success of last year, adding some more council-related events, and obviously the South Australian Tourism Commission is coming in to curate and manage the Norwood Food and Wine Festival on the Sunday, the 7th of April. So again, it's about identifying those opportunities as they arise, and council certainly jumped at the opportunity of trying to be part of Gather Round, and we've been successful in our negotiations with the AFL and state government. And it's also about always trying to leverage off your strategic advantages, and we believe the parade has a number of those. And so I think when you think about economic development, it's not just about the spend on the day. It's about creating a vibe and a feeling. Economic development is visceral as much as anything, to ensure that people who come along say, look, that was a great experience, I had a great day or great couple of days or great night at that particular event, and I want to come next year, or I want to come next week and buy that dress I saw in the window, or that that piece of furniture, or whatever it might be. I think it's about stimulating that interest for return visitations and secondary spend as well.
I think the parade, for people who are listening, the parade is in a very unique position that it has an oval. a league football oval right on the road, right next to the parade. So it's a very good vantage point. And of course, what you've done is actually the council's really made sure they've worked that and leveraged it and made it part of the street. So you've done that really well.
I think so, and even putting aside a gather round, just when Norwood play during the sample season during the year, Friday nights are always very popular. There's opportunities for people to have a coffee or a meal at the restaurants and cafes, then go to the game and then grab a drink or a coffee in the pubs and cafes again afterwards. So people can make a night of it, and I think the nighttime economy is just as important for the parade as the daytime economy. We obviously have the cinema complex as well, and the State Theatre Company at the Odeon Theatre. So it's about creating a range of experiences for all different demographics. And again, it's just part of finding that right balance of offerings for existing customers, but also potential customers, which is critical to the sustainability of the street.
And I guess most main streets have some competition very close by. And while you're close to the city, you also have a competitive centre nearby, the Burnside Centre, and that's going through an expansion. I just wanted, so you're gearing up your marketing program and sort of getting things ready for when that opens in a few years' time. You'll be up and running well and truly.
Well, yes, Burnside is expected, I think, to be completed by the end of 2025. Yes, it's a competitor, but I'll put a little asterisk next to that, because whilst it is a competitor and it's close by, the Parade Precinct Committee doesn't see it as an apples for apples comparison. We are a Main Street. They are a shopping centre. We have a lot of things that they don't have. So, cinema complex, residential apartments on the parade, as you mentioned, Norwood Oval. There's pubs. So there's some really distinct differences between the two. And we also present ourselves on the parade as a street for the people, from 0 to 100 in age group, whereas the Burnside is perhaps a little bit more discreet and more distinct in terms of the socio-economic demographic that it's trying to capture. And so, there are, yes, we potentially could be competing for the same dollars in some respects, but in many respects we are competing for different dollars from different audiences. And so I don't think we should be focused on how can we be different from the parade. We already are different, and I think it's about celebrating that difference rather than trying to keep up with the Joneses, which is, I think, some main streets do, and it's a mistake. I think you need to really leverage off your unique features, what makes your main street unique, and ensure that people celebrate that. And the council is a big part of, I suppose, that education process to say, yes, Burnside's down the road, but we've got something better here.
And I think it shows some of the diversity that you've got there in the parade. And, books like Dylan's Bookshops are just iconic. And you've got, the Bath Hotel. You've got some great, unique businesses that actually make the parade stand out.
I think so. And the pubs are obviously great. And there's a lot of businesses that have been around for generations. Then you've got the national brands, and then you've got some newcomers who are, independently owned. So again, it's about finding that right balance of the retail mix and not having one particular sector dominate. So if things happen in the economy, that sector suffers, and then it sort of drags the whole street. You need sort of a good tenancy mix to counterbalance against other sectors when they're experiencing bad times. So I think it's hard work. People think that Main Street sometimes run on autopilot. We are run very differently to shopping centres where there is a sole owner and he or she controls the shots. Main streets are very different. It's about working with a group of people collaboratively, finding common ground, and continuously looking for opportunities to just find that edge, and finding that right mix and that right tenant, just to fill a gap sometimes.
And so recently you joined the Mainstreet SA committee. And that's a really good move. I just want to ask you, what motivated you to join the committee?
Well, I think I've had experience on the council with Main Streets, the parade in particular, but to a lesser degree, Payneham Road and McGill Road. And I think sometimes you can get caught in your own bubble and just think too much about how you can, reimagine main streets that are front of mind, and not really give yourself the opportunity to think outside the square and see what's going on elsewhere, and looking at other ideas and how different councils and experts in the field approach economic development as they relate to main streets differently. So for me, it was really about personal growth, but professional growth as well, and just being able to bring some fresh ideas into my thinking as chair of both the Parade Precinct Committee and the Business and Economic Development Committee about how could we do things differently. What are the learnings for the parade from Jetty Road and Unley Road, King William Road, Prospect Road, and there are learnings. I think we're always learning off each other. So I think to close yourself off from other main streets and just sort of concentrate on your own patch, I think is only gets you so far in terms of your capacity to grow. And so I think it's always good to listen to different voices and see different things out there. So for me, joining the Mainstreet Committee was, I think, a logical next step. And I hope that over time, my experience on the committee can manifest in some different experiences here on the parade and elsewhere in our city.
I think it's a really good point about linking with other people and using resources that are out there. And that's why we've always kept connected with Mainstreet Australia and Mainstreet America, because often they have lots of connections with resources and information that actually adds value to us. And so, it's a very good combination, and we can bring that to our Mainstreet members and to South Australia as well. So it's a really good advantage.
I think, look, it always is a good advantage. And I think the more connections you can have in terms of economic development, I think it broadens your horizons. And, you have to be willing to listen to different perspectives, different ideas, and importantly, the lessons that other people have learned in the main streets that perhaps they're interested in or they've been involved in, to find those sort of commonalities so that you don't make the mistakes that they made.
That's great. Well, thank you, Robert. That's fantastic having a great chat to you there. And we really appreciate you being part of the Mainstreet Masters series with Mainstreet SA. And we look forward to catching up in the future. And thank you so much again.
Thank you, David. I really appreciate the opportunity.